Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever it is that you are watching this video. So welcome to the fourth video in our video series for organisms in kingdom Plantae. We did have a worksheet and I hope you filled in page 1 for unique characteristics of all Plantae, for unique characteristics of bryophytes, pteridophytes, and today we're going into page 3, which is focusing on the group Gymnosperms. I hope these videos have been engaging and I hope they're helping you learn. If not, I apologize in advance. But, thank you for being here anyway. And if you're ready, let's get started with the learning. So, today's video, group Gymnosperms. Alright, what should we know about Gymnosperms? The learning objectives for this part of chapter 1 is you should be able to describe the unique characteristics of Gymnosperms, and you should be able to state the classification of Gymnosperms into 4 phylum, which is Cycadophyta, Coniferophyta, Gingophyta, and Gnetophyta. Let's get right into it. What could be the unique characteristics of Gymnosperms? Well, first of all, they are seed-bearing plants. This is what sets it apart from pteridophytes. Okay, they have seeds, seed-bearing plants, but their seed is not the same as the durians and the rambutans and everything else that you eat, which are angiosperms. Okay, their seeds are not enclosed in an ovary. So if you could see this diagram of the gymnosperm seed on the right, okay, you have the embryo, a little bit of food supply for the embryo, and then immediately it is covered by a seed coat. Whereas in an angiosperm, this is kind of like reflecting what we learned in chapter 9 last semester, is in an angiosperm seed, you would have the embryo, you would have the endosperm or the food supply for the seed, for the embryo. It's protected by a seed coat. And then outside of it is a fleshy fruit, which is usually eaten by other organisms. Okay? For gymnosperms, they don't have that fleshy fruit layer, and the seeds are exposed on the sporophyll. Gymnosperms do not produce fruits because they have no ovary, and all gymnosperms are heterosporous. So gymnosperms all have complex lignified tissues. Okay, so they have xylems, but their xylems only have tracheids. They do not contain the vessel elements, so they don't contain that. Their phloem only contains the sieve tube. It does not contain the companion cells. Okay, so that's the difference. Okay, they have complex lignified vascular tissue, but the xylem only have tracheids, do not contain vessel elements. The phloem contains sieve tube, do not contain companion cells. Most of them have cones on which sporangium will develop, and those cones consist of closely packed sporophylls, and the cones, some of them will harden as they mature. Okay, and some have thick cuticles to conserve water on their needle-shaped leaves. So down this dala nipis, tapi dia akan ada waxy layer to prevent it from drying out. So this is the part about cones, right? So cones have sporangium, cones on which sporangium develops, and cones consist of closely packed sporophylls. So this is what a cone looks like. A male cone on the Pinus species on pine trees. This is female cone, which is usually what you see on Christmas trees or fake Christmas trees. If you look at it, if you slice it in half and look at it under the microscope, okay, the brown part is the outer layer, that is the sporophylls. And then on the inside is the sporangium and the pollen grains inside the sporangium. This is on the female cone. You would have the megasporangium or the ovule protected by a megasporophyll. It would have the ovum inside the ovule. Other unique characteristics of gymnosperms: their dominant generation is sporophyte. The gametophyte generation is reduced, almost microscopic, and the gametophyte generation depend on the sporophyte for nutrients. So gametophyte generation dia kecil-kecil saja, lepas tu dia akan duduk dalam itu cone. Okay, the male gametophyte also small. It comes in the pollens dependent. They're both dependent on the sporophyte. Their pollination agent is wind. Water is not needed for sexual reproduction because the sperm cell do not swim. Sperm cells of gymnosperms are non-motile. They will be conveyed to the egg cell by pollen tube. So this is a little bit similar to the angiosperms that you learned about in last semester. Okay, dia akan ada pollen grain. Pollen grain dia akan bercambah menghasilkan pollen tube. Pollen tube itu yang akan hantar sperm masuk ke dalam egg. Water is not needed for sexual reproduction of gymnosperms and their pollination agent is wind. Okay, those are the unique characteristics of gymnosperms, and now we are going into its classification. So we can classify gymnosperms into 4 phyla based on their morphology. The first phylum is Coniferophyta. This is where most of the very iconic gymnosperms are, which includes conifers or pines. Examples are pine trees, the kind that you would use for Christmas trees, or there are also pine trees at the beach. Okay, kalau kamu pergi Tanjung Aru ka, or even the beaches here in Labuan once you are allowed to get out of the campus. If you get the chance to go to any of the beaches, do look out for the pine trees. There are pine trees that are by the beach as well. And conifers are usually evergreen. They last a long time. So winter time landscape, usually you would see some conifers one way or another. The second phylum is Cycadophyta, cycad species. So they were very dominant in the time, in one of the times of the dinosaurs. They were much more abundant in prehistoric times. Now they're a bit less reduced. One of the reasons is that they grow pretty slowly. And their reproduction can also kind of hinder their success as well. You can learn more about cycads if you want to Google it, and I highly encourage you to. But for now, it's only enough that you know that they kind of look like palms. Okay, they kind of look like palm trees, kind of look like ferns, but it is neither palm nor fern. It is its own phylum in group Gymnosperm. Okay, it's under group Gymnosperm, Cycadophyta. Gingophyta is the third phylum in group Gymnosperms. Gingophyta, now the only surviving member is the Ginkgo biloba, which is also commonly eaten as a health product. Supposedly, it gives you many health benefits. But for us biologists, it is most notable for the fact that it is the only surviving member of its phylum, which lasts to this day. Okay, those are the Gingophyta. And last but not least is phylum Gnetophyta, Gnetum species. So Gnetum species would look a little different from all the other gymnosperms. They are becoming a little bit more angiosperm-like, but they're not really real angiosperms yet. So that's why it is still under its own phylum in gymnosperms. And as you can see, although we all classify them under gymnosperms, they look quite different from each other and they can inhabit quite different habitats. So there are a lot of comparisons that we can do between them, and that is exactly what we're going to do next. We're going to compare the morphology for each of these phylum. So in Coniferophyta or conifers or pines, they will have needle-like leaves. For Cycadophyta, they will have palm-like fronds. So the daun nampak macam pokok kelapa punya daun. Gingophyta will have fan-shaped leaves. So it's very distinctive. Tengok ni macam cute, cantik. Macam kamu boleh bawa bergambar-gambar di bawah pokok dia because the leaves are so beautifully fan-shaped. And Gnetophyta will have leaves that look almost like angiosperm leaves. They are nice, big, and broad leaves. So very different from the needle-like and the palm-like fronds of the conifers and cycads. In terms of their reproductive structure, how they reproduce actually, is in Coniferophyta, the reproductive structure is a cone. In Cycadophyta, the reproductive structure is a large strobilus or a large cone. Whoopsie daisy. Hold on a bit. Hold on. I accidentally closed my video. Okay, hold on. Right. Alright. Where was I? Okay, in the Cycadophyta, the reproductive structure is a large strobilus or a cone. Okay, and it is much bigger than the cones of conifers. In Gingophyta, reproductive structure is also called strobilus, but the strobilus is differently shaped from the other from the cones of cycads and the cones of conifers. And the reproductive structure in gnetophytes is a flower-like strobili. So this is strobilus juga, tapi bentuk dia nampak pelik sikit, nampak macam berbunga sikit. So this is the morphology for each phylum. Conifers is cone. Cycads is large strobilus, also called cone. Gingophyta is strobilus. Gnetophyta is strobilus, but flower-like strobilus. In terms of their xylem, conifers only have trachete. Cycads only have trachete. Gingos only have trachete. Gnetophyta have trachete and vessel elements. So ito lang din nampak lebih canggih sikit berbanding kepada yang lain. It's a bit more angiosperm-like. In terms of their phloem, conifers consist of sieve tube only. Cycadophytes consist of sieve tube only. Gingophyta consist of sieve tube only. Gnetophytes consist of sieve tube with companion cells. Coniferophyta are monoecious. That means you can have male and female reproductive part. So male and female reproductive cones on the same plant. Kamu tengok dahan dia sebelah ada female cone, dahan dia sebelah lagi akan ada male cone. So conifers are monoecious. One plant can have male and female. For cycads, they are dioecious. So one cycad plant can only have male cone or female cone. The Gingophyta is also dioecious. Okay, so Gingophyta is also either male gingo or female gingo. And the Gnetophyta, some of them are dioecious and some of them are monoecious. Depends on the species. So it is a very brief chapter on gymnosperms. In this diagram, you can see many different types of gymnosperms. You've got the conifers here, you've got your cycads here, you've got your gingo here, and you've got your gnetophyte here. The gnetophyte in this example is a bit different from the gnetophyte you see in the other ones. If you're curious about gymnosperms, I highly encourage you to go ahead and do a Google search. Okay, it can be from Wikipedia, it can be from YouTube. Go and learn for the sake of learning. You don't have to learn just because it's in the syllabus. If you have fun to study this, you can study this on your own. But if not, who am I to stop you? The important part is you know that the important part is you study what you need to study, which is what is in the syllabus. Complete my worksheet, please. And I hope you do well in whatever exams or quizzes that we have coming up. And if this is something that you would like to study more in the future, that is really great for you. If not, it's good to know. Okay, I've rambled on enough. It's a bit of a short video, tapi banyak juga mau malipek. So I will see you again in the next video, which is on angiosperms. Thanks a bunch!